You've been told to follow your heart, to chase love, as if it's the highest purpose of life. But what if that very chase is the reason you suffer? What if love, as the world sells it, is not pure at all, but a weapon crafted from your own desire? Oh, love is a tool, not a virtue. From the moment we are capable of feeling, we are taught that love is the most sacred of all emotions. The summit of human virtue, the one thing that gives life meaning. Songs, poems, films, and religions all worship this idea. They tell you that to love purely and endlessly is the ultimate sign of goodness. But what if this entire belief is a convenient illusion? What if love, beneath all its poetry, is not a virtue to be worshipped, but a tool to be used? And more dangerously, a weapon to be wielded. Those who rise to power, in politics or in personal life, quickly realize that love is not merely an emotion, but a mechanism of influence. The lover, blinded by affection, becomes predictable, obedient, and easy to control. The beloved, on the other hand, learns to shape and direct this devotion to their own ends. History is filled with kings, conquerors, and common men who were brought to ruin, not by swords, but by those they loved too much. To love blindly is to hand another person the key to your mind and the map to your weaknesses. Human affection, when observed through the cold lens of reason, is rarely unconditional. It is transactional in nature, built upon mutual benefit. People love not because of pure virtue, but because the relationship provides something: comfort, security, admiration, validation, or pleasure. Once those needs are no longer met, love begins to decay. The illusion of permanence fades, and what remains is the stark reality that affection was always dependent on exchange. Those who seek to understand power recognize this pattern. They learn that love can be one of the most effective instruments for persuasion and manipulation. A ruler who is loved can command loyalty more easily than one who rules by fear. But the wise ruler also knows that love must never be trusted completely. For the same heart that adores today can betray tomorrow if the winds of desire shift. People love those who serve their interests. When those interests are no longer served, the affection evaporates, leaving only resentment or indifference. In personal relationships, this truth manifests quietly but consistently. Consider how one partner often takes the dominant emotional role. The one who cares less holds the power. The one who loves more becomes the servant of that affection, always anxious to please, always fearful of loss. The relationship becomes unbalanced, not through cruelty, but through the natural laws of attachment and dependence. Love becomes a chain disguised as devotion. The mind in love is not free. It bends itself around another person's will, interpreting every action, every word, every silence as a sign of approval or rejection. This dependency is the essence of control. To love deeply without discipline is to surrender sovereignty over your own emotions. Those who understand this dynamic learn to temper their feelings, to maintain a distance between emotion and decision. They see affection not as a force to obey, but as a current to guide. Love's power lies not in its purity, but in its utility. The clever know how to offer just enough warmth to inspire loyalty, just enough affection to create dependency, and just enough withdrawal to maintain control. In this way, love becomes a calculated art. Not the wild storm of passion that poets celebrate, but a silent game of influence and restraint. The one who can evoke love without succumbing to it holds an advantage over those who let emotion dictate their choices. To call love a virtue is to misunderstand its true nature. Virtue implies selflessness, constancy, and moral purity. Yet love is rarely any of these things. It can inspire generosity, but it can also provoke jealousy, obsession, and cruelty. It can unite people under shared desire, or divide them through envy and betrayal. Love has been the seed of great empires and the reason for their collapse. It is neither good nor evil, it is simply potent. And like any potent force, its value depends on how it is used. Look closely at how society markets love. Endless devotion, unconditional giving, the romantic ideal of two souls merging as one. This narrative serves not the individual, but the collective need for control. A population taught to worship love is a population easily swayed by emotional appeal. Advertisers sell through affection. Politicians charm through empathy. Leaders rule not by logic but by the manipulation of sentiment. Love, when elevated to a sacred status, blinds people to reason. It encourages submission, sacrifice, and dependence. the perfect ingredients for control. In contrast, those who see love as a tool rather than a virtue are not heartless. They are simply awake. They understand that affection, like any form of power, must be governed by discipline. To love wisely is to love without losing the ability to judge, to care without becoming enslaved by care. It is to give affection where it strengthens, and withdraw it where it weakens. Such a person does not chase love because they recognize that love, like respect, is drawn to strength, not desperation. Love in its rawest form is a negotiation between desire and self-interest. When two people come together, they exchange not only affection but also power. One seeks validation, the other seeks control. One offers devotion, the other offers recognition. Every relationship is a subtle contract, written not in words but in the invisible currency of emotion. Those who fail to see this believe they are acting from purity, but they are in fact playing a game they do not understand. Those who see the game for what it is can move through the world with clarity. Never deceived by the surface beauty of affection, never enslaved by the fantasy of unconditional love. The true danger lies not in loving, but in idealizing love. For when you believe love to be sacred, you allow it to blind you. You excuse betrayal in its name, justify weakness as devotion, and accept suffering as proof of sincerity. The world rewards those who can see past this illusion, who understand that love, like power, must be measured, directed, and occasionally withheld. To use love well is to understand its dual nature. It can elevate or enslave, depending on who holds the reins. Those who grasp this truth cease to be victims of affection and begin to master it. Love, stripped of its sentimental disguise, reveals itself as one of the most effective instruments of human behavior. It compels people to act against reason, to sacrifice wealth, dignity, and even life itself for the sake of emotional fulfillment. Such is its power, and such is its danger. To treat love as a virtue is to be ruled by it. To recognize it as a tool is to learn how to rule through it. The illusion of mutual devotion. Human beings like to believe that love, once found, is a shared and equal experience, a mutual devotion where two souls give themselves wholly to one another. This belief, comforting and poetic, is one of the grandest illusions ever produced by the human mind. Beneath the surface of every relationship lies an unspoken hierarchy, a quiet imbalance that defines who holds power and who obeys. Mutual devotion is rarely mutual. It is an arrangement maintained only so long as both sides continue to benefit. What most call love is in truth a contract of emotional exchange. Each partner provides something the other desires: attention, validation, pleasure, security, or status. The illusion of equality endures only while both continue to deliver what was unconsciously promised. The moment one side ceases to fulfill the other's needs, affection begins to erode, and the mask of devotion begins to crack. People do not fall out of love because the other has changed. They fall out of love because their own desires are no longer satisfied. This reality exposes a truth that most refuse to accept: love is conditional, even when disguised as eternal. Every declaration of forever carries within it a silent clause: as long as you continue to make me feel the way I want to feel. Those who understand this do not hate love. They simply refuse to be deceived by its theater. They know that what appears as pure emotion is often a calculated exchange between needs, fears, and ambitions. In every bond, there exists a giver and a taker, though these roles are not fixed. They shift with circumstance, emotion, and opportunity. When both parties receive what they desire, the relationship appears harmonious. But harmony is not the same as equality. It is a balance of competing interests temporarily aligned. Mutual devotion is sustained by equilibrium, not by selflessness. When one side begins to invest more time, more attention, more emotion, the equilibrium tilts. Dependency forms, and the one who gives more becomes vulnerable to the one who withholds. Even in the most intimate unions, the shadow of self-interest looms. A person may claim to love another selflessly, but beneath that claim lies the hope for reciprocation, gratitude, or recognition. To love without expectation is rare, almost unnatural, because human beings are driven by desire, and desire always seeks reward. The language of love hides this truth beneath beautiful lies. Phrases like unconditional love and soulmate are comforting fictions that conceal the constant negotiation occurring beneath the surface. Observe how affection changes with circumstance. When a partner becomes ill, poor, or socially diminished, love is tested, not by fate, but by self-interest. Many who once swore eternal devotion quietly retreat, because their partner can no longer satisfy the needs that anchored their affection. This is not cruelty, it is nature. The instinct for survival, comfort, and status often overrides sentiment. Only a few possess the strength to love beyond utility, and even they suffer for it. The illusion of mutual devotion is sustained because society demands it. People need to believe that love is fair, that devotion can be equal, that they are not merely trading emotions for benefits. To admit otherwise would unravel the romantic mythology that sustains the collective psyche. Marriage vows, love songs, and fairy tales all exist to preserve this illusion, because it maintains social order. If everyone truly understood how conditional affection is, the structures built on emotional faith, family, loyalty, sacrifice, would weaken. In reality, love operates more like an alliance between two kingdoms than a sacred merging of souls. Each side enters the union with their own interests, resources, and vulnerabilities. The alliance holds as long as the partnership is advantageous. Once the cost outweighs the gain, the treaty begins to dissolve. Some people stay together out of fear, others out of habit, and others still out of social pressure. Not out of mutual devotion, but out of mutual dependence. The heart often follows the path of least resistance, even when it disguises that path as loyalty. To believe in pure reciprocity is to misunderstand human nature. People are not equal in their capacity to give or their willingness to sacrifice. Some love intensely but receive little. Others receive endlessly and give almost nothing. The world does not distribute emotional energy evenly. The stronger, more independent person often becomes the emotional center around which the weaker or more dependent one orbits. This imbalance is not inherently evil. It is simply how power expresses itself through affection. True equality in love would require two people to be completely self-sufficient, unafraid of loss and untempted by gain. But such individuals rarely seek relationships at all. Most are drawn to love precisely because they seek completion through another, an admission of inner lack. This dependence ensures that no relationship can ever be fully equal. The moment you need someone, you place them above you. The illusion of mutual devotion is therefore sustained not by truth, but by necessity. Humanity could not bear the loneliness of complete self-reliance, so it clings to the fantasy of equal affection. What we call loyalty is often the fear of losing one's source of comfort. What we call sacrifice is frequently a transaction in disguise. People endure mistreatment in relationships not out of pure love, but because leaving would mean losing the identity they have built around their partner. This, too, is part of the illusion. That staying is noble, that suffering is proof of devotion. In reality, such endurance often reveals dependency, not strength. The deeper the dependency, the stronger the illusion of mutual devotion becomes, because the mind cannot bear to see its own captivity. Even betrayal does not always break this illusion. Many who are deceived in love still cling to the belief that their partner once truly loved them, as if that belief itself can restore dignity. They tell themselves stories to preserve meaning, because accepting the transactional nature of affection feels like admitting weakness. The truth is harder. People are faithful until they are tempted, kind until they are offended, loving until they are no longer served by the arrangement. Every act of love, at its core, carries a shadow of calculation. A compliment seeks validation. A gift seeks gratitude. Even the tenderest gesture is colored by the desire to be seen and appreciated. This does not make love false, only human. The tragedy lies in pretending it is anything else. Mutual devotion, when stripped of illusion, is not the merging of souls but the delicate balancing of desires. It survives only as long as both parties find value in the exchange, and when that value fades, devotion fades with it. The great deception of love is that it convinces people that equality exists where it does not. It paints dependence as partnership and need as virtue. It tells you that to give everything is noble, and to expect balance is selfish. Yet those who see clearly understand that devotion, like all human bonds, is subject to the laws of advantage. The appearance of mutual affection conceals the constant negotiation of power, interest, and need that defines all relationships. Those who grasp this truth no longer chase equality in love, for they know that love's harmony depends not on fairness, but on the quiet tension between what each person seeks and what each is willing to give. The weakness of the seeker. In every relationship, whether personal or political, there exists a universal law: the one who seeks loses. The one who chases love, approval, or affection inevitably places themselves beneath the one who is desired. To seek is to confess need. To need is to reveal weakness. The world is constructed in such a way that desire itself becomes a form of submission, and those who cannot restrain it are quietly enslaved by it. The seeker becomes a servant to what he wants, while the desired becomes the ruler of that hunger. When a person begins to chase love, they abandon the foundation of power, self-sufficiency. Every act of pursuit carries with it a silent message: you are more valuable than I am. This is the moment control begins to shift. The chaser gives, the desired withholds, the seeker proves, the desired judges. What began as attraction transforms into hierarchy. The more one desires, the more one concedes. Every unanswered text, every delayed response, every act of indifference from the desired becomes a test of patience, and every effort to regain attention becomes an act of obedience. Thus, love ceases to be a meeting of equals and becomes a game of dominance. Human beings instinctively crave validation from those they adore. It is an ancient instinct, the desire to be accepted by the one we admire. But in the modern world, this instinct has become a trap. The seeker believes that persistence will eventually earn love, that devotion will breed affection. Yet, paradoxically, the more one gives freely, the less one is valued. What costs nothing is rarely respected. When love is handed over without demand, it loses its weight. The beloved, realizing the depth of the seeker's devotion, begins to see it not as a treasure but as a resource, something to be drawn upon when convenient, something always available, always certain. The seeker lives in a state of quiet desperation. Their emotions revolve around the approval of another. They interpret silence as rejection, attention as reward. They begin to shape their behavior, not according to their own principles, but according to what they believe will please the one they chase. This is the birth of emotional dependency, a slow erosion of individuality in exchange for the illusion of closeness. The seeker becomes an echo, reflecting the desires of the beloved, losing all sense of self in the process. Power in love does not belong to the one who feels more deeply. It belongs to the one who can afford to feel less. Detachment commands attention, obsession repels it. When someone knows they are desired, they gain leverage. They can withhold affection, delay commitment, or test loyalty, all without consequence. The seeker endures it all, believing that patience will be rewarded. But in truth, patience only deepens their captivity. The longer they chase, the more they teach the beloved that they can be chased without effort. To chase love is to place your happiness in another's hands. It is to declare, whether silently or openly, that your sense of worth depends on how another perceives you. This dependence weakens not only the spirit, but also the judgment. The seeker begins to justify what they should condemn, to excuse neglect as mystery, to interpret indifference as depth. They tell themselves that love must be earned, that struggle makes it real, when in fact, struggle only exposes the imbalance. The beloved, aware or not, becomes accustomed to being worshipped, and worship rarely breeds respect. This pattern is visible not only in romance but in all human interactions. The employee desperate to please their superior is overlooked, while the one who appears indifferent to approval is respected. The friend who constantly seeks validation becomes tiresome, while the one who withholds praise commands attention. The same law governs every realm. Need invites exploitation. When others sense your dependence, they instinctively assert control. It is not malice, it is instinct, a natural reaction to imbalance. The seeker believes they are acting out of love, but what they truly display is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of insignificance. Love that arises from fear cannot create strength, it only deepens weakness. True affection must emerge from wholeness, not from deficiency. When you chase love to fill an emptiness within, you give others the power to decide when and how that emptiness is healed. You become emotionally indebted, and emotional debt is the most binding form of slavery. Consider how easily people are manipulated through their need for affection. Those who crave love will tolerate humiliation, neglect, even cruelty, as long as they receive moments of tenderness in return. These brief rewards act like bait, keeping the seeker hopeful and compliant. It is the same mechanism used in power and politics. Reward the loyal just enough to keep them obedient, never enough to make them independent. Love, when used as bait, can enslave far more effectively than fear. The seeker, unaware of this, mistakes crumbs of attention for proof of connection, and remains trapped by hope. This weakness of the seeker is not limited to individuals. Entire societies are built upon it. The market thrives on the hunger for affection and approval. People buy what they believe will make them more lovable, more desirable, more worthy. The constant pursuit of external validation, through appearance, success, or status, is simply the same weakness on a larger scale. Humanity's greatest vulnerability is its need to be wanted. Every form of manipulation, from advertising to emotional control, begins with the same premise: make people believe they are not enough on their own. And they will do anything to earn love. The tragedy of the seeker is that their intentions are pure, but their method is flawed. They mistake devotion for strength when it is, in fact, surrender. They believe persistence will prove worth, when worth cannot be proven through need. Love that must be chased is already lost, for it rests upon imbalance. The seeker imagines that sacrifice will inspire affection, but sacrifice, when unreciprocated, only feeds contempt. To chase is to devalue oneself. To wait with quiet confidence is to command respect. In every dynamic, the moment one begins to chase, the other begins to withdraw. It is not cruelty, but the natural order of desire. Attraction follows mystery, not desperation. When love is too easily available, curiosity dies. When someone is too eager to give, the gift itself loses meaning. The seeker's mistake is believing that love is earned through visible effort, when in truth, it is sustained through silent strength. Those who cannot restrain their pursuit find themselves endlessly chasing, never realizing that the more they run toward love, the faster it runs away. The weakness of the seeker lies in their inability to see that love, like power, favors the composed. The one who does not beg for affection becomes the one whose affection is desired. The one who can walk away holds all the control, because freedom is the most seductive quality of all. The seeker, trapped by longing, cannot see this. Their emotions become a cage, their devotion a chain. They confuse submission for love and dependency for connection, never realizing that the very act of seeking ensures they will never truly possess what they chase. Strategic detachment. There exists a kind of strength that is misunderstood by most. The strength of restraint, of silence, of emotional discipline. In a world that glorifies passion and attachment, detachment is mistaken for coldness. Yet those who truly understand human nature know that detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. It is not about rejecting love or denying emotion. It is about controlling the extent to which emotion controls you. Strategic detachment is the art of maintaining power in a realm where most people surrender it willingly. The realm of the heart. To be detached does not mean to be indifferent. Indifference is born of apathy, but detachment is born of awareness. The detached person sees love, desire, and affection for what they are, forces that can inspire greatness or destroy judgment. They recognize that emotion, unchecked, becomes leverage for others to use. When someone can easily provoke your joy, your anger, or your longing, they possess a part of your will. To remain detached is to deny anyone that leverage. It is to engage with others deeply, yet remain sovereign over your own reactions. In every human relationship, emotions are the invisible currents of power. Those who are reactive, who answer every silence with panic, every distance with pursuit, become easy to control. The one who remains still, who observes rather than reacts, creates uncertainty in others. Uncertainty breeds respect. The detached individual wields calm as a weapon, because calm cannot be manipulated. When others cannot predict your response, they cannot govern your emotions, and thus cannot govern you. The reason most people suffer in love is because they mistake surrender for intimacy. They believe that the more they expose their heart, the more genuine the connection will be. But emotional exposure, when given without measure, invites imbalance. It gives the other person the ability to harm, even unintentionally. Strategic detachment introduces a necessary boundary. It says, I will give affection, but not dependence. I will share emotion, but not surrender my will. In this way, one remains capable of love without becoming consumed by it. Love, when viewed through the lens of discipline, becomes a field of strategy. Every act of attention, every withdrawal, every silence carries meaning. The detached individual understands timing, when to give and when to withhold, when to speak and when to let silence speak for them. They do not act out of impulse but out of intention. This deliberate control confuses those who expect emotional transparency, and that confusion becomes a form of power. Inconsistency is a weapon of the weak. Composure is the armor of the strong. In the practice of detachment, one learns to observe the self as well as others. The greatest enemy of power is emotional reactivity. Every time anger drives an action or longing dictates a choice, control is lost. The detached person studies their own impulses as a ruler studies a volatile subject, not to destroy them, but to understand and rule over them. By mastering one's own reactions, one becomes unassailable. Others may attempt to provoke jealousy, to inspire guilt, to manipulate affection, but their efforts dissolve against a mind that does not yield to immediate feeling. This state of restraint is rare, because it demands patience in a world addicted to immediacy. People want to express, to resolve, to be heard. The detached person, however, knows that silence is often louder than words. When others seek constant reassurance, they reveal need. When others overshare emotion, they expose vulnerability. The detached individual allows mystery to work in their favor. Their restraint forces others to wonder, to question, to seek their approval. Power shifts naturally toward the one who is least available. Strategic detachment does not eliminate love, it elevates it. When emotion is no longer desperate, affection becomes deliberate. The detached person does not love because they must, but because they choose to. This choice carries weight, for it is not born of weakness or lack, but of strength. Their love is not chaotic, it is structured. It does not demand, it does not beg, it does not plead. It exists within boundaries that protect both dignity and peace. Those who receive such love feel its rarity, for it is not scattered through impulse, but bestowed through intention. Detachment is also the antidote to manipulation. Emotional manipulators thrive on reaction. They provoke to measure control. They know that the more they can make you feel, the easier it is to steer your decisions. But when faced with someone detached, their tactics collapse. The calm, unreadable mind cannot be provoked into chaos. A detached individual does not chase explanations, does not over-justify, does not compete for affection. Their lack of visible need disarms those who rely on emotional leverage. Detachment thus becomes both shield and sword, protection against exploitation and instrument of quiet dominance. There is a subtle psychological effect created by strategic detachment. It amplifies value. What is rare is revered. When affection is not constantly displayed, it gains significance. When availability is limited, attention becomes precious. People instinctively value what they must earn. A detached person understands this and allows scarcity to increase their worth. They know that love, like power, grows stronger when it is not overextended. Those who can walk away, who can withhold without resentment, become irresistible to those who cannot. However, this mastery of emotion requires inner completeness. Detachment cannot be faked, for pretense eventually collapses under emotional pressure. True detachment arises from self-sufficiency, the understanding that one's happiness is not dependent on external affection. When you no longer need to be loved to feel whole, you gain the ability to love freely without fear. A detached person can give affection without the anxiety of loss, because their sense of identity does not crumble when love is withdrawn. They can care deeply and yet remain composed, for they have built their foundation within, not upon the shifting sands of someone else's attention. Strategic detachment is not cynicism, it is clarity. It allows one to see love as it truly is, not as an eternal promise, but as a dynamic exchange shaped by human imperfection. It teaches that affection must never outweigh self-respect, that emotional expression must always serve purpose, and that the greatest form of attraction is composure. Those who master detachment do not lose their humanity, they refine it. They transform emotion from a wildfire into a controlled flame, powerful, enduring, and never destructive. To the undisciplined mind, detachment feels unnatural, even cruel. People equate depth with openness and vulnerability with virtue, but the world does not reward those who give without limit. It respects those who know their boundaries. Detachment allows one to remain kind without being exploited, generous without being drained, loving without being lost. It is the quiet confidence that does not beg to be understood or validated. It is the refusal to let emotion dictate destiny. When one practices detachment strategically, they begin to see the invisible mechanisms of attraction and control that govern all human relationships. They understand that love without restraint becomes obsession, and devotion without balance becomes weakness. Through detachment, they preserve their autonomy while still engaging fully in the dance of connection. They are capable of intimacy without dependence, affection without fear, desire without surrender. And that is a form of freedom few ever experience, the reality of human nature. To understand love, power, or loyalty, one must first confront the truth about human nature, a truth that most people refuse to face. The human being is not a creature of virtue, but of interest. Beneath every act of kindness lies a motive, beneath every gesture of affection, a calculation. We are taught to see humanity as noble and moral, as guided by conscience and compassion. Yet reality reveals something far colder and far more consistent. People act not according to ideals, but according to advantage. Love, friendship, devotion, morality, all are influenced by what benefits the individual in a given moment. Human beings are driven by three primary forces: fear, gain, and ego. These are the hidden architects of behavior, the silent governors of emotion. Fear prevents betrayal when love cannot. Gain sustains loyalty where sentiment fails. Ego transforms even acts of sacrifice into expressions of pride. To understand this is to pierce the illusion that affection and morality alone bind society together. What binds it instead is mutual dependence, enforced by necessity and maintained by perception. When one looks closely at relationships, the same law becomes evident. People stay faithful not because they are inherently good, but because the risk of losing comfort, status, or reputation outweighs the temptation of betrayal. They remain loyal as long as loyalty serves them, and when it no longer does, they create justifications for departure. This is not an indictment of humanity, but an acknowledgement of its consistency. Human beings are not unpredictable. They are predictable in their self-interest. Love, often exalted as the purest human emotion, is perhaps the most revealing example of this truth. People do not fall in love simply because they admire another's soul. They fall in love because they find in another something that enhances their sense of self: beauty, validation, attention, or the illusion of completeness. The beloved becomes a mirror reflecting the seeker's ideal self. When that reflection fades or distorts, affection withers. Thus, love endures only as long as it satisfies some internal hunger. When it ceases to feed the ego, it starves. Even acts of apparent selflessness are seldom free of hidden intent. A parent sacrifices for a child out of love, yes, but also out of the desire to preserve legacy, to sustain meaning through another life. A lover forgives not purely out of compassion, but because forgiveness restores the illusion of control or protects against loneliness. Every good deed is tinged with an element of self-service, whether conscious or not. The reality of human nature is that purity of motive exists more in imagination than in practice. The tendency to deny this truth arises from fear. People need to believe in goodness because belief offers comfort and stability. To see the world as it is, selfish, competitive, transactional, would shatter many illusions that make existence bearable. Religion, philosophy, and culture all work to conceal the darker impulses of humanity beneath layers of moral justification. They transform the instinct for dominance into leadership, the pursuit of gain into ambition, the craving for approval into love. By disguising self-interest as virtue, civilization maintains order without stripping away dignity. Yet beneath every facade, the primal human remains. Strip away titles, wealth, and status, and the same instincts appear to preserve oneself, to conquer weakness, to secure comfort, to avoid pain. This is why power has always fascinated humanity more than virtue. Power grants safety, influence, and choice, the very things that love falsely promises. Those who seek power understand that human loyalty is not bought with emotion, but maintained through fear and respect. They know that to rely on affection is to build a castle upon sand, for affection shifts with circumstance, but fear and gain endure. This reality extends beyond personal relationships into the structure of societies. Nations are bound together not by brotherhood, but by shared interest. Alliances are made when they serve economic or political purpose, and dissolved when they do not. Leaders speak of unity, justice, and compassion, but act always according to necessity. Even peace itself is maintained through balance of power, not through universal goodwill. Humanity survives not because it is good, but because it is cunning. The same principle that governs the heart governs the state. The pursuit of advantage cloaked in the language of virtue. Understanding the true nature of people does not require cynicism, it requires observation. Watch how quickly affection fades when gain disappears. Notice how loyalty withers when fear is removed. Observe how even friendship transforms when one party no longer offers validation. The pattern is too consistent to ignore. People are loyal while it is convenient, loving while it is beneficial, moral while it is rewarded. When the balance shifts, so does their behavior. Those who recognize this do not despair, they adapt. They learn to manage expectations, to deal in reality rather than in hope. The wise never expect consistency from emotion. They know that affection is unstable because human need is unstable. What a person loves today, they may abandon tomorrow if new desire arises. Even within families, where love is considered sacred, conflicts of interest constantly expose the limits of devotion. In friendship, admiration turns to envy the moment success becomes uneven. In romance, passion fades once curiosity is satisfied. Every form of connection is subject to change because every human is ultimately loyal to their own comfort. This truth, though unsettling, is liberating to those who embrace it. When you cease to expect purity from others, disappointment loses its sting. When you understand that most people act from self-interest, betrayal no longer surprises you. You begin to interact with others not through naive trust, but through strategic understanding. You learn to align interests rather than demand virtue. By appealing to what benefits others, you achieve more stability than by appealing to their conscience. The key to lasting influence lies not in inspiring love, but in managing need. Human nature is not evil, it is simply pragmatic. What is called morality often aligns with convenience. People avoid harm when it endangers them, help others when it elevates them, and love when it soothes them. Even the act of giving can be a subtle form of taking, a way to feel superior, to secure admiration, or to escape guilt. To see this pattern clearly is to see humanity stripped of illusion, functioning as it always has under the same laws of desire and fear. The greatest mistake one can make is to assume that others value principle over advantage. History itself testifies otherwise. Empires rise and fall on promises of virtue that dissolve the moment they conflict with ambition. Lovers vow eternity, only to retreat when novelty fades. Friends swear loyalty, yet vanish when fortune turns. Such behavior is not corruption, it is consistency. Human beings have always followed the compass of self-interest, merely disguising its direction under noble names. To understand the reality of human nature is to stop demanding purity from others and start mastering the mechanisms that govern them. It allows one to move through the world without resentment. For disappointment comes only to those who expect more than nature allows. The wise deal with people as they are, not as morality pretends they should be. They trust when it serves them, forgive when it benefits them, and detach when attachment becomes a liability. In doing so, they no longer chase illusions of perfect love or loyalty, but operate within the cold, steady rhythm of truth that rules all human hearts in a world ruled by emotion. Those who see clearly hold the true power. Love, loyalty, and devotion are not what they seem. They are mirrors reflecting the deeper motives of human nature. To master life, one must master perception, and to master perception, one must learn detachment. Stop chasing illusions, start studying reality. The truth may be dark, but it sets you free. If you hunger for more revelations that uncover what people hide behind their smiles, subscribe. Because this is only the beginning of understanding how the world really works.